that in terms of artists and location and yeah.
I mean, I must say, I think there's something very special about art in that if you have an interest for art, whether you're an artist or not, it's when you find the right people, it's quite amazing what you can do together. I mean, I write about art, I make a podcast about art, I spent a lot of time on my own reading about art, thinking about pictures. But it's also so extremely important to go out in the world and to meet the people and to find your tribe and to make shows and to talk about shows and so on.
It's so intoxicating when you really become like obsessed with it and when you allow yourself to be not only vulnerable, but allow, texture and color to affect your mood. Like you have to be pretty open with your, not only like who you are, but your body language and what you're thinking about. And for me, when I was younger, I would look at these like minimal paintings and, it's this thing where it's like, oh, they've run out of paint, like the old dad joke. And just over the years of, paying attention and really learning and allowing myself to feel and think about color and how it makes you feel, it definitely all kind of comes together in a really beautiful way. So I think you don't always have to be making it for it to affect you. As long as it affects you, I think that's a really beautiful thing because it can drive so many new thoughts or new feelings, or you can help express the beauty of creativity to someone else that might be not as open-minded as you. So I think it's such a tool to articulate so many things, almost in a way that like music can make you feel so many things, but it's very literal. So that moving into the noise music thing again, it's almost this more abstracted idea of what we think music is. So I feel like art is kind of this abstracted reality where we can all come together and point out these themes that affect our day to day, kind of more quotidian lifestyle, but also allow it to just be really vulnerable and once again, just beautiful if it's something that's not as charged,
I mean, I know you never went to college and you started working very early on, but if you look back when you went to school, did you have art at school? Or is that where you started? Have you always been a boy who's been painting and doing stuff? Or how did you come towards art?
I was young. In fourth grade, my grandpa gave me this camera. And that same year, there was an elective at my school to take photography. And I just really fell in love with it. And that same year, I also did a ceramic class, which was the first time that I was allowed to really build with my hands. And I thought at that moment, I really felt like an affinity towards it. Like it felt very natural and exciting. But I really didn't take advantage of art as much as I should have throughout school. I was really focused on just assimilating and having friends and trying to, it wasn't really my focus until after high school. I was always doodling and taking photos, but I never really thought of anything to be what I spend my time doing every day. I think I knew the creativity was kind of brewing, but I didn't really know what way I wanted to kind of shoot that arrow. I was really into style and old clothes and movies. So it was film, or do I want to do a vintage store? Or do I want to, so it was really I knew I liked kind of something more free spirited, and that's what I wanted to spend my time doing. But in terms of any art classes, I didn't really have any outside of those two classes that helped shape me. I learn a lot now from friends who have gone to art school, and I'll ask them things that I might have a question about, or I go online and I really listen to a lot of talks that different institutions put out, and also through YouTube, and kind of go through the different levels of finding inspiration. So it's let's say I'm really inspired by Theaster Gates, who's really inspired by Noah Purefoy, who then I look up Noah Purefoy, and we, you know what I mean? For me, it really evolves through these things that I spend my time reading about and researching. But I think art class for me, I was more into debate, and I took an extracurricular history class about the Harlem Renaissance. And to me, it was more about knowledge, because so much of my personal life at my house wasn't really filled with any form of academia. It was kind of freewheeling. I was out skateboarding or surfing or biking or at my friend's house. So at school, I did feel kind of a yearning for something that was a little bit more disciplined, because I didn't really have much of that in my upbringing. So I think for me, I definitely was in class, but I never really allowed myself to be and think as an artist until I was a little bit older. It was something I kind of kept to myself, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's a natural thing, isn't it? That you grow up and you want to spend time with your friends, and also I don't think that you have the capacity to understand what art really is at sort of age 10. I think you evolve more into it, and the art world is so much broader and bigger and more diverse than I don't think anyone can imagine who's not actually in it.
Yeah, I mean, my mom still to this day is like, what do you mean? Like
Yeah.
you're putting together these assemblage, old found things, you know? So it's like there still is a disconnect with someone that thinks in that way and really allows art to be a thing, and then people that kind of question it, and then people who don't really have any mental space for it. So I think when you're younger, you abide by so many rules that are almost invisible. That one thing that's like not really doesn't really grow as much as a young kid is this idea of like being creative and, you know, breaking kind of the system in which we live. I think now it's a more progressive reality, and younger kids are being exposed to so many different ways to express yourself and how you feel. But yeah, I think I still was kind of caught up in this idea where I would be, you know, a sports agent or a lawyer, or, you know, you still kind of in these like these false realities where you could go to school and go to college and get this job type of thing. And I think as I got older, I realized some of that kind of gilded BS was like, you know, had its cracks and holes and faults. And I think what I was really affected by was more of like society and these kind of peripheral realities that we all were dealing with. And I think it kind of started to overtake my care for like, you know, finding quote unquote success. I thought it was almost like a realization where I was like, wait, there's a lot going on. There's a lot that needs to be talked about. And I think art is just such a crucial way to have this conversation and, you know, put an hour aside for us to talk about making things, listening to things, race, you know, inequity and things like that. So I think for me, it's such an open-ended hat. I don't really believe that you have to make just one thing. I'm really interested in like documentaries and painting and ceramics and photography. So it's like being able to use that as a, you know, almost like a spear into these problems or things you care about and want to talk more about.
Yeah, and again, I think a main point about art is actually discussion around it and to talk about it and to find the people around you that you want to talk to.
Sometimes I feel like if you look back into history, some artists really didn't have anyone, and it was kind of more of a lonely experience, and there's something really beautiful in that as well. But I guess that still drives conversation further down the line.
I mean, I'm not always sure that you need to have a conversation in real time. I think it's something quite miraculous about being able to look at a painting or at art from a different century. And you can still connect with it. So I mean a discussion in a very broad sense, that you read something that was written 200 years ago and you can still feel extremely inspired by it. That in itself is, and that connection into history, I find really, really powerful when it works.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like a time warp or like a time capsule. It's like you see these old Renaissance paintings of like a mom and her child, like the classic Madonna and Child thing, and now you'll see like a Deanna Lawson photo of like a real time contemporary mom and daughter in like Detroit, and it's like, wow, this theme, this story, this love and this connection is like something that's everlasting. And I think, like you said, almost that synchronicity that happens within something that's like the art imitates life, life imitates art conundrum that we all discuss. So I think it is really beautiful, and when it happens right, it is really magical.